Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive and to our continuing series on Warhammer Quest. So we're finally through everything in the base game and all the expansions and the warriors, all the officially released stuff. And now we're going to start taking a look at the White Dwarf magazine issues that have material from Warhammer Quest or articles about Warhammer Quest, that kind of stuff. I am missing a few of the issues, but I do have them on the way, and so we might loop back to those if they don't come up. I don't know if we're going to look through every issue or not. There are quite a few, and it could take quite a long time. I'm definitely not going to read through the entire magazine of each of these. I've flagged some of the more Warhammer Quest related stuff. So we'll see how these go. I don't even know if these will be interesting for you guys or not, so if they are, let me know. That way I'm not wasting anybody's time except for my own, right? So White Dwarf, when White Dwarf first started, it was more of a general periodical about fantasy role-playing games, and they covered the big ones at the time, Dungeons and Dragons and Traveler, I think, and one other, Rune something. I'm not quite sure, but I know that they covered just more general stuff about role-playing games, and it wasn't until about 1980 that White Dwarf decided to, or they changed the focus to basically only Games Workshop games and Citadel miniatures, and in many ways it kind of became the Nintendo Power. You were getting a very biased magazine. All the articles basically read as advertisements, kind of. They were written in such a way that to really sell their product, and take that as you will. If that sounds interesting to you, you would buy it and read it and love it and want to get all the cool stuff. If you weren't a fan of Games Workshop, you probably weren't picking up the issues once they became more focused on their games only, except for maybe if you wanted to see, painting techniques or that kind of stuff. So anyways, this is the first issue that has really anything to do with a Warhammer Quest. This is issue 184. And as you can see, the cover here is the cover of the Warhammer Quest box. A close-up of that. And so this one, the main article was designer notes on the original game. And so this is issue 184, and this is from April 1995. And the cover art, so the box art, of course, was done by Jeff Taylor. And here we have the table of contents, and our main article here is Warhammer Quest, written by Andy Jones, one of the main creator of the game. So he wrote the article about how the game came to be, how he designed the game. So I'm just going to kind of flip through here. I guess you can pause if you want to see something in more detail. I'm not going to read everything, but there's a lot of stuff in here that's really fun to read. I love reading old magazines. They really are relics of their era. There's some John Blanche art. He is, next to Gary Chalk, he's probably my favorite of the old Games Workshop artists. Like I've said before, I'd love to get his book, Rat Spike. So if anybody knows of a way to even get a PDF of it, let me know, because I've never even seen it, and it's very expensive. It sells for hundreds of dollars. Got some nice painted Space Marines. Even before I even was like super into these games, I loved looking through White Dwarf issues at like Walden Books or B. Dalton booksellers, just to look at the painted miniatures. It always fascinated me. They always have the best painters. Yes, some Blood Bowl stuff, Chaos Dwarves. I've got that team in my closet. I don't really play Blood Bowl anymore. The games are too long, I find. I thought I was going to get back into it last year when they released the new one, whenever that was, but yeah, the games are just too long. Here's some papercraft. Build a little fort for your 40K stuff. That's kind of cool. All right, and now we're coming up. Oh, look at that. You could win, by taking the survey, you could win a huge pile of all their games. That would be like anybody's dream come true, right? Back in the day. Love it. All right, so here we go. Here's the first article on Warhammer Quest. So Warhammer Quest, Dungeon Adventures in the Warhammer World by Andy Jones. This April, Games Workshop releases its brand new dungeon adventure game, Warhammer Quest. We asked game designer Andy Jones to give us the laydown on the development of this latest addition to the Games Workshop hobby. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but we'll just kind of read paragraphs here. Over the last year or so, we've been kept busy writing army lists and developing the background for many different Warhammer races. All this work is periodically published as a new Warhammer Armies book, and with every volume, we add an extra layer of detail to the Warhammer world. Most of this background detail takes the form of characters, stories, illustrations, and maps of the newly charted regions. This is because our primary intention is to develop a rich history and background to the Warhammer world, the old world, within which individual Warhammer battles and linked campaigns can develop and unfold. So I know you guys have heard me say before, but I really think that Games Workshop, like their lore, their background is second to none. It's the best. Their games have so much interesting developed worlds, characters, scenarios, and I really think that's why they're the king of the thematic game. It's just because of how interesting their worlds are. If you like the kind of worlds they create. I know, a lot of people don't like the 40K world because it's so super misogynistic, endless battle, grimdark kind of stuff. But hey, if you like it, then there is a lot of stuff to love and a lot of interesting things to read to really help your imagination flesh out the world that you're playing in. So as well as creating a superb setting for fighting our tabletop battles, we also realized that the Warhammer world had just the right atmosphere for another type of game. Rather than commanding an army and facing the forces arrayed against you by the other player, in this game, you would command just one bold warrior and a party of 4 like-minded heroes in order to venture into the caverns, caves, dungeons, and other perilous underground realms of the Warhammer world. So again, I don't know how much you can take the words as they are written at face value, because these issues, these White Dwarf magazine articles were written to be advertisements. So, you might look at it and say, well, they came across this in like a pure artistic way of wanting to flesh out their world, or they came across it just purely marketing. Whatever, it doesn't matter. If you liked it, you were into it, and it got you excited. And so here, some readers would get their first glimpse of some of the cards, like the objective rooms and the passages, the enemies that you would face. And this says, of course, games of this type have been done before. And some years ago, Games Workshop published a game called Advanced Hero Quest, which had a similar theme. However, we saw the opportunity to create an exciting and unique new game system, which would both build upon this past work and set the standard for many years to come. And largely, I think they accomplished that goal. I think they did what they set out to do, because I still think that this is, as far as just pure dungeon crawls go, this is still the bellwether. This is still the one that I think you want to beat, because it does a little bit of everything. You've got exploration, you've got random events, non-combat events, a huge bestiary, randomly made dungeons, exploration, role-playing. So a little bit of everything. And then it would just kind of go into in here and kind of just explain how the game works, how you're going to be setting up your dungeons, and with the dungeon cards, the treasure cards, event cards. And then it started to go into have a little bit of the warriors, the painted warriors there. The 4 warriors from the Warhammer Quest game, the wizard, the barbarian, the dwarf, and the elf, have to be among the best plastic citadel miniatures we have ever designed. Okay, maybe. But why would you, if you're trying to sell the game, why would you say anything else here? These are really lackluster miniatures. And then it started to go into like everything they were packing into the box. And it actually tells you right here all the minis you're going to get. So that is really cool, because they already mentioned Advanced Hero Quest. And Advanced Hero Quest, I love the game. I think the rules are it might be the best rule system ever made for a kind of a never-ending, randomly generated dungeon. However, the box set is just so lackluster. And I'm going to do a quick video about that at the end of this series, just comparing the two boxes and kind of even though how Games Workshop presented the two games and how different they are. So it just kind of tells you they really liked writing like straight to the consumer. In here, they were very consumer focused. So it is, this says, once you've opened the box and fought your way past the mountains of Citadel miniatures, you'll find a short 32-page rulebook, a 16-page adventure book, and a how to get started sheet. There's also a huge 192-page roleplay book, which you should put to one side until you've completed your first few adventures. So yeah, like I said, everything is written kind of like as an advertisement, but they did a really good job at that, and they would get you excited. And here's the picture from the back of the box where they showed you everything you were getting. I've just shown a close-up of that before, but I mean, that's just a great spread of awesome game components. And then they even start talking about the warrior packs and the adventure packs that would come to expand the game. So yeah, so that was like the first kind of taste that people got of Warhammer Quest right there. There's only one other thing I think I wanted to point out. Oh yeah, just like an advertisement page. So an advertisement within an advertisement. But even here, Warhammer Quest contains, I said in my very first video that I really think Games Workshop, I really think they were really proud of what they put in the box, because they would they never shied away from telling you exactly what you were getting in this box, because you were actually getting so much. All right, so those were the two main pieces of Warhammer Quest information in issue 184. So I don't have issue, let's see, do I have issue? Yeah, I do have 185. I'm missing 185. I do have 186. Now most of these that I have already removed the inserts, or the inserts were removed before I got them, but I already have them like either printed out DIY style. Let's see, so issue 186, this was the release of the Warrior Priest, and then the Flames of the Kozla article, the floor plan and cards for the Flames of Kozla special quests. And you also got, I think, a couple of treasure cards in here. These really did kind of have, even though these magazines were professionally made, they had a DIY quality, or not a DIY, but a small town hobby feel to the magazine, even though they were, not that. Because you have to remember, back in the 90s, and even before, without the internet, things did feel smaller. Your local hobby store was kind of like your entire hobby world. And so these magazines, they really focused on making the Games Workshop stores and your other, officially licensed stores that could sell Games Workshop products. They really tried to make it into a feel of a community. When I was growing up, I did not have a Games Workshop store in my area, but there was a store called the Game Preserve, and that's where we would buy all of our stuff. So this is issue 186 from June of '85, and this cover is the first cover of the ones we're going to be looking at, done by David Gallagher. I wish this advertisement wasn't here to see David Gallagher's art. He is excellent, and we'll be taking a look at a lot of his covers. So he just had kind of have a little bit about Games Workshop, the store. They would sometimes do little spreads about individual stores and like the managers and stuff. And so here we have the release of the Warrior Priest. So in the first few pages, you would always get the new stuff that was coming out, kind of like the previews. And so this is the Warrior Priest. This is it's the second Warrior pack for Warhammer Quest. The first was the Pit Fighter, and I don't have that issue yet. The Warrior Priest is an excellent companion on any adventure, maybe. Able to call upon the gods themselves for aid, as long as they listen, and as long as the Warrior Priest doesn't roll badly and end up harming you. With righteous anger, he strikes down foes with the potent Warhammer, and with his holy book of Sigmar, he can invoke blessings upon the party. On his hand, he also wears the Ring of Jade, imbued with magical healing power. And then I'll see more loot. And then the second pack of treasure cards was going to be coming out around the same time. And here we have the prices here. So the Warhammer Quest releases the Warrior Priest was only $6.99 pounds, before the euro. I don't know what the exchange rate was back then. That's probably around $12 or $14, I would imagine. And then the Treasure Pack 2, a new set of 56 cards, and that was $4.99. So that was probably about 10 or 12 bucks. And then here's some pictures of an old tournament. It's funny, I bet if you went to a tournament now, it would probably look pretty much the same. So this is a really cool, so these are battle wizards, and actually if I go up here, I do have the box. I love this box of minis here. So this was the battle wizard box, and I use these guys for a lot of different things. I believe that is a David Gallagher cover on this box here. So that all of these minis here are painted here. I love the guy, the druid guy with the bear claw and the bear and the fox or bear cowl on. I don't really like this guy. I love this guy with his wild hair. He's really cool. The guy with the sickle. It's kind of like Egyptian or Eastern looking guy. A chaos sorcerer. So yeah, lots of really cool. Highly recommend this little box of plastic minis. That's a really good one. More 40K. So you can really tell that 40K has always been, I think, more popular than the old world stuff. They did really tend to focus on 40K more. So here's a better picture of that cover. And so this is actually for the expansion for Talisman, the Dragon's Tower for 3rd edition of Talisman. And the 3rd edition expansions go for just crazy amounts of money. And here's a couple new characters for 3rd edition Talisman. So that's cool. They're on magazine paper, but you could cut them out and glue them. And then let's see. So here we are. We got the Flames of Kozla, the articles here. I've kind of already talked about this little expansion before. It talks about your special quest and the dungeon cards that you would get. I really like this diorama here. Really cool. I wish I had the space and time to make stuff like this. One day, I guess when I'm older, when we convert our garage, we'll have a big room for our hobbies, my wife and I. And then we got, completing a special quest. So you could draw a card at the beginning of your game to see if you were going to go on a special quest or not. And once you go on a special quest here, you would have 6 different little special quests that you can go on. The Task of Kozla, the Gifts of Kozla, Offering of Kozla, the Renewal of Kozla, and then finally the Warning of Kozla. And so then this here would give you could cut out these cards, sleeve them, or they just said to fold it and glue an index card in the middle. And here's your tile for the floor plan. So there's one more page I have flagged here. Oh, just another ad. Same spread. They really liked that picture, and I can't blame them. That's one of my favorite marketing shots of a board game ever. All right. The Golden Demon 95. So that would be your number one, your miniature painting competition. Really cool little fantasy diorama there. Really like that stuff. All right, so that was it for issue 186. All right, 187 here. Yep, so we have another David Gallagher cover. Not quite sure why the knight is riding a T-Rex, or I guess that's a cold one, but it really looks like a T-Rex here. So issue 187, this was the release of the Lair of the Orc Lord expansion. And this had design notes of the for the Imperial Noble warrior pack. So here we go. Here's the release for the Imperial Noble. This month, Games Workshop releases the first of its Warhammer Quest adventure packs. Each adventure pack contains a selection of specially sculpted metal Citadel miniatures, together with new board sections, cards, and rulebook. I do wonder why they did so. I do wonder why they made the expansion, the warriors, and the 2 adventure packs. They made those metal miniatures instead of plastic that came in the box. Maybe it was just the box had too many to make them metal, but I wonder why they just didn't make everything plastic and save a little bit of money. And then perhaps you like to face the threat of Gorgut and the Horde as an Imperial Noble. With his sharp wit and sharper rapier, the Imperial Noble can cut his way through almost any opposition, and looking fabulous while doing it. So Imperial Noble Warrior Pack, again, the price hadn't raised since the last one, $6.99. And the Lair of the Orc Lord, the only 19.99 pounds. Compared to, I see these going on to eBay. I don't know if they ever sell, but some people are asking for like $700 for the expansions. I don't think they ever sell at those prices though. I got both of mine together for $400. I probably paid a little much. I probably could have gotten them cheaper, but me, when I see something that I want, and if it's a price that I think is fair, I'll pounce on it. So here was our first ad for the Lair of the Orc Lord expansion. Some of the photos on the ads had mismatched color. They didn't get the printing quite right, so it's a little messy. The Black Fang orcs of Mount Gunbad are ruled by the tyrannical war boss Gorgut. Surrounded by his brutal bodyguard and entertained by Gubbins, the goblin jester, Gorgut holds court, counting the skulls of the many warriors who have dared to enter his bleak domain. Good copy for the ad there. Again, they're focusing on another store. It's a new store, Milton Keynes, now open. Canterbury, now open. So I don't even know how many stores they had in the United States back then. I know they had them. They probably had them up in San Francisco or LA or something like that. Just not in my little small town of Fresno. Even though Fresno always had a really interesting gaming community. There were some great game stores, great comic book stores back in the day. And I knew a ton of people who played games. And we even had some anime conventions and comic book conventions. So there's actually a lot of nerdy hobby stuff going on for such a small city. Pretty lucky because none of it was really crowded, so you could always go and not have to fight. A nice map of the old world there, and the lands of the dead, really, because I think this is in conjunction with this article on many centuries ago. The dark elves were driven from the elven lands of Ulthuan in a cataclysmic civil war. Fleeing northwards, they came to the dark and forbidding lands now known as Nagaroth, the land of chill. The name is an appropriate one, for the unwelcoming home of the dark elves is a harsh wilderness of frozen tundra. Really cool map here. Nagaroth, the land of the chill. Chaos Wastelands, the Chaos Wasteland. I like old fantasy maps, really fun to look at. Just kind of let your mind wander. This article actually is a really, really cool article on the Dark Elves. Great art, lots of good background. So this is the kind of stuff that I was talking about earlier, how you could read these and just imagine your little miniatures on your table in these other lands, because they did such a good job of filling out and fleshing out the details. All right, so here we are. We're at our main Warhammer Quest article on the Lair of the Orc Lord. This is written by Andy Jones and Dean Bass. I don't know who Dean Bass is. Lair of the Orc Lord is the first adventure pack for Warhammer Quest. In this article, Andy and Dean explain what the new type of pack is all about and give us a glimpse of what dangers lurk in the Lair of the Orc Lord. Here's a little close-up of the box art. Sampling of the cards, more about the characters and orcs, adventure packs in general. Lair of the Orc Lords is the first in a new series of adventure packs. Yeah, that series only ended up being 2. I really wish they would have completed what I think would have been the third, that the Skaven one. These are set in strongholds, some of the most fearsome monsters in the Warhammer world. Each pack contains new monsters for the players to defeat, extra events for your warriors to encounter, more board sections for you to quest through, 6 new adventures for you to complete, as well as loads more treasure for you to collect. All you need to explore the deadly orc domains of Warlord Gorgut is the Lair of the Orc Adventure Pack and the basic Warhammer Quest box set. Sign me up! A little preview of the tiles there. A little bit about the miniatures, a little bit about the lair. There's some nice painted miniatures of the main green skins that you would be fighting. And then this also came here with this 4 pieces of treasure. So we have the Grimstone, Moradrell's Boots, Freezing Death Spell Jewel, and the Reaper's Sword. So I think I already have these printed out. That way I don't have to cut up that page in the magazine and keep it as intact as possible. And here we have the ad for the Imperial Noble. Mr. Fancy Pants. The Imperial Noble is a swift and deadly warrior. With his trusty rapier, he can duel with many enemies at once, or use his deadly dueling pistol to shoot them down at a distance. All right, so that was issue 187. We'll take a look at one more. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to be able to go through all of these. We could do another another 10 parts just looking at these issues here. All right, so 180. Let's see, 188. Release of the Elf Ranger and Creatures of Darkness, a guideline to create your own monster cards. So again, we have another awesome cover by David Gallagher, Tyranids. His art was really cool, very cartoony, but lots of good detail. Neat colors. Yeah, I loved his colors that he used. And so here we go. Here we have the ad for the Warhammer Quest for the Elf Ranger. Let's see, with the first of the Warhammer Quest adventure packs released this month. So this was kind of, I guess it came out, the Lair of the Orc Lord came out in between these 2 issues. Because if you missed a preview of this great new expansion last issue, then we'll just quickly let you know that Lair of the Orc Lord contains tons of new events, treasures, and new magic items. Just in case you want to throw us some more money. Elf Ranger. With their homes destroyed in the Dark Elf Wars, Elf Rangers have no kingdom to call their own. Forced to travel, Elf Rangers wander the Warhammer world in search of elven treasures. Okay, so this one was actually, the prices are in I almost said the prices are in English. Ugh. All right, so Lair of the Orc Lord here, $40, not pounds. And then the Elf Ranger was $14.99. Troll Slayer was $14.99, and the Treasure Deck 3 was $8.99. So I was close in the approximation. So it's hard to remember back to, what was this, 95, how much, $20. I was out of high school, so I was working, so probably only making like $5 an hour. So, you know, a half a day's wage on 3 hours just to buy a single warrior. That's pretty expensive, I guess. Really nice painted there. The Hive Tyrants. Very, very good. All right, we're just going to jump straight to here. So here we have the ad for the Elf Ranger. have your Creatures of Darkness by Ian Pickstock. The caverns and dungeons below the Warhammer world are treacherous places. Courageous warriors battle against evil, questing for lost treasures through the unending danger of bloodthirsty monsters and vicious traps. So this was just all a way to utilize your blank cards that came in the game, or the ones that you could buy. How to pick the monsters. You had to make sure you had the official Citadel miniature. No proxying allowed. Wink, wink. How to figure out how much gold they're worth and their special abilities and rules. Different ways to make Dark Elf warriors. They were really pushing the Dark Elves around this time. How to figure out how many. So, I don't know. Interesting, I guess. If you wanted to. I've never really been one to write on blank cards that come in games. Darklight Memento Mori came with a giant stack of blank cards. So we'll see if I'll write on those. Oh, here we go. I just marked this as an ad, mail order ad here. They're having a sale on Warhammer Quest. You could save $8. You got some kind of free promo treasure cards, it looks like. Buy Warhammer Quest at $59.99. So it's quite a bit cheaper than I thought in my first video. And the Pit Fighter character pack or the Warrior Priest character pack, and receive any pack of treasure cards for free. Oh, so it wasn't just these. So you would just get one of the. So if you bought that, you would get one of the treasure packs for free. So not bad. All right. So we've made it through 4 issues. Only about 15 to go. 15 to go. If you guys find this interesting, I do. I like looking through these and talking about them, but I don't know if anybody else is finding it interesting. So even if just 2 people say, hey, yeah, this is cool, just let me know and I'll continue this series. If not, we'll move on to look at the maybe the Deathblow. I definitely want to look at one. I definitely want to look at, I think it's issue 191. Keep that as a surprise because it's very cool. And maybe we'll just look at the Deathblow issues or move on to the DIY stuff. So let me know. And thanks for watching. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.